Princess Anne has long been known as the hardest-working royal, the one who walks through mud in silence while others chase the spotlight. But behind the palace walls, her influence is undeniable. When Anne moves, it's never symbolic, it's strategic. And today she has made a move that's shaking the monarchy to its core. She has named Catherine the supreme head of royal charities. This isn't just a title, it's a declaration of power, a subtle yet unmistakable challenge to anyone standing in her way. Before we dive into every explosive detail, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story is only beginning to unfold. For decades, Anne built her reputation quietly. No glamour, no fanfare, just relentless service. Shelters, clinics, community centers. Anne was there when the cameras weren't. Her relationships with charities weren't casual. They were built on loyalty and trust, giving her leverage few could rival. But as the monarchy began to embrace celebrity, Anne saw her legacy slipping. Lavish galas, red carpets, and curated appearances started replacing decades of real work. And as Queen Camilla took center stage in the charitable world, Anne knew the time had come to act. The stakes were high, the palace tense, and one name rose above the rest: Catherine. The announcement wasn't dramatic. No press flashes, no cameras, just a quiet letter circulated among the top charity leaders. In her precise handwriting, Anne declared Catherine the supreme head, bypassing protocol, Camilla's influence, and even the king's authority. This was more than a gesture, it was a statement, a seismic shift in royal power. And as the palace whispers grew, one question dominated every corner. How would Catherine respond? The seeds of a royal battle had been planted, and as this story unfolds, you'll see why this isn't just about charities, it's about legacy, influence, and the monarchy's very soul. Princess Anne's decades of dedication were no accident. While others sought headlines, she forged real connections, building a network of trust with hundreds of charities across the UK. Her influence wasn't flashy, it was earned through presence, consistency, and moral authority. And yet, that influence was being challenged. The rise of Queen Camilla as a philanthropic figure was not just noticeable, it was personal. Lavish events, elite galas, and curated public appearances began to overshadow Anne's lifetime of work. Insiders say Anne watched quietly at first, her patience tested, her frustration simmering. But when one of her flagship youth programs was denied critical funding, redirected to one of Camilla's newer initiatives, Anne realized subtlety was no longer enough. A line had been crossed, and action was required. Behind closed doors, Anne began meeting with trustees and leaders of Britain's most influential charities, quietly gauging the possibility of a successor who could carry forward the monarchy's charitable mission with integrity. And then, quietly, Catherine's name emerged. She hadn't campaigned for power, hadn't demanded recognition, yet her work spoke volumes. While Camilla's philanthropy shone in spotlights and photo ops, Catherine's influence came from quiet, relentless engagement. Early childhood initiatives, mental health awareness, trauma recovery programs. Her consistent presence built respect and trust among those who mattered most. Anne saw in her steadiness the one trait no other royal could match: moral clarity. So, without ceremony or public announcement, Anne handed Catherine the baton. A letter, signed in her unmistakable hand, circulated among charity leaders. Catherine was now the supreme head of royal charities. A title never used, a decision never made before, and a clear signal that Anne's legacy and the future of royal service was now in Catherine's hands. The palace had entered uncharted waters, and the subtle chessboard of influence was about to explode. Catherine's acceptance of Anne's unprecedented offer was quiet, deliberate. She didn't seek the spotlight, didn't make a grand announcement, but stepping into this role meant entering a battlefield, one where loyalties were tested, alliances shifted, and missteps could be exploited. William, ever protective and politically astute, understood the risks. This wasn't a promotion, it was a provocation. Camilla's influence, backed by decades of palace maneuvering, would not yield quietly. For days, Catherine observed and listened, attending schools, meeting frontline workers, and engaging with programs she had long supported. She absorbed the pulse of the people, gaining insights into what truly mattered, beyond optics and ceremonial gestures. And then, without fanfare, she gave Anne her answer: yes. That single word marked a turning point. It wasn't just a new era of responsibility, it was a signal that the royal hierarchy would be challenged, that influence could shift without arrogance, without spectacle. The palace walls, however, were already buzzing. Subtle sabotage began immediately. Anonymous leaks questioned Catherine's readiness, her stamina, and even her emotional resilience. Senior aides circulated memos, legal clarifications were requested, and oversight procedures suddenly became hurdles. Every delay, every small obstruction was orchestrated to test her endurance. The battle was silent but fierce, and the stakes were nothing less than the credibility of the monarchy's charitable mission. But Catherine remained unshaken. While the palace tried to undermine her, her influence outside its walls grew exponentially. Charities, once neglected under newer leadership, now rallied behind her. Directors praised her consistency, her ability to listen, her authentic engagement. Social media amplified these moments: unscripted visits, quiet conversations, personal gestures of care, transforming Catherine from a royal figurehead into a trusted, living symbol of service. The people responded with fervor, and the tide began turning. Anne, ever the strategist, didn't let Catherine's rising influence go unnoticed. In a rare public display, she praised Catherine at a charity gala, signaling unwavering support. This wasn't mere flattery, it was a formal endorsement of Catherine's authority and a subtle warning to palace factions still resisting the transition. Camila, however, was far from passive. Behind closed doors, she orchestrated a counter-strategy, leveraging loyalists, manipulating media narratives, and quietly rebuilding her influence. Charles, caught in the middle, tried to maintain neutrality, but even his caution sent ripples through the palace. The formation of a parallel court became evident as lesser royals were elevated to chair events and present themselves as faces of philanthropy, an unspoken challenge to Catherine's emerging authority. Subtle leaks to the press questioned Anne's rigidity, painted Catherine's role as a risky gamble, and implied that the Duchess of Cambridge might be overextended. Every move was calculated to destabilize the shift in power without igniting public outrage. Yet Catherine remained unwavering. She didn't react to whispers or leaks. Instead, she continued her hands-on engagement with the charities. Visits, meetings, and personal gestures of care became her armor. Each act of service reinforced public trust, turning the palace's internal resistance into visible admiration from the outside. Media narratives slowly shifted, highlighting Catherine's authenticity and quiet dedication rather than palace gossip. What had been framed as potential weakness became her greatest strength. The crescendo of this power struggle came at a closed-door session at Windsor. Senior royals convened for an emergency meeting, aware of the stakes. Anne presented comprehensive documentation, signed agreements, and a binding resolution officially naming Catherine as supreme head of royal charities. The decision was now structural, permanent, irreversible, and undeniable. William stood firmly by Catherine's side, signaling unflinching support. Camilla left the room silently, her defiance unmistakable but powerless against the consolidation of authority. Charles, recognizing the irreversible nature of the decision, acknowledged the legitimacy of the documents, ending weeks of uncertainty. The public release of Catherine's new title was met with awe and admiration. This was not a ceremonial promotion, it was a seismic shift in royal power dynamics. Catherine's influence extended beyond appearances. She now had authority grounded in trust, competence, and integrity. Behind palace gates, the weight of responsibility was immense, yet she carried it with the same grace that had earned her widespread respect. Late nights, endless briefings, and the management of multiple charities tested her resolve, but she remained focused on the people, not the politics.
Catherine's new role quickly became more than symbolic. Overnight, her responsibilities tripled. Programs once neglected now looked to her for leadership, and each decision carried weight. Every signature, every engagement, every interaction was scrutinized, not as a future queen's gesture, but as a direct command from a powerful figure shaping the monarchy's charitable mission. The pressure was relentless, yet Catherine approached it with quiet determination, balancing operational demands with personal compassion. Letters and messages poured in from those whose lives she touched. A mother from a children's hospice wrote, thanking Catherine for simply being present, for offering human connection where policy and patronage fell short. These small moments reinforced why Catherine had accepted the role, not for prestige, not for legacy, but for the people. Each act of service became a compass, guiding her decisions in a realm where tradition, expectation, and politics collided. Anne remained close, offering guidance and counsel, while allowing Catherine to rise fully into her own authority. Her silent mentorship underscored a deliberate strategy to step back without stepping away. Catherine, in turn, led with purpose, never seeking to overshadow those who opposed her, but steadily redefining what leadership in the monarchy could mean. Charities, volunteers, and the public became her guiding force, not the palace hierarchy. Meanwhile, Camilla's influence waned. Appearances at charitable events decreased, her circle of loyalists fractured, and her once growing campaign lost momentum. The palace quietly acknowledged the shift in power, even as outward appearances remained calm. Catherine's authority, grounded in earned respect and genuine service, had overtaken political maneuvering and ceremonial titles. The monarchy itself began to reflect this transformation. Meetings became results-focused, long-standing programs were revitalized, and younger royals found their voices in shaping initiatives. Catherine's rise marked a fundamental shift. Power was no longer inherited alone. It could be earned through service, consistency, and moral clarity. Anne's decision to pass the baton was revolutionary, cementing a legacy of purposeful leadership and signaling a new era for the monarchy. As Catherine continued her work, the palace learned a crucial lesson. Influence built on trust, integrity, and action could outlast titles, appearances, and traditional hierarchies. And yet, questions linger. While public displays suggest a new order, the palace remains a web of strategy and subtle power plays. Has the conflict truly ended, or is this merely the calm before another storm? One thing is clear. Catherine, once a quiet figure behind the scenes, now commands attention not through spectacle, but through service, compassion, and unwavering dedication. Her reign of hearts has just begun, and in the shadows of tradition, she is quietly reshaping the monarchy for a new era.